This week's guest has 31 caps for Ireland, won the Champions Cup with Leinster, and compares his role at number 10 to that of the director of a €20 million company. Ian Madigan talks about life after rugby, how structure still plays an important role in his life, and reveals a key trait that the best leaders on field and in the boardroom have in common. Before we get started, a quick word about our sponsors, Philip Lee LLP. Philip Lee has evolved from a specialist regulatory practice to become a leading commercial law firm. Their partners are sector specialists, leading talented teams of lawyers in a collaborative, nurturing environment. Philip Lee's solutions help clients build better businesses, a better society, and a better planet. Find out more at philiplee.ie. Philip Lee, leading the way in commercial law. Delighted to welcome our guest today, Ian Madigan, former international rugby player, European champion, and now respected rugby pundit and analyst. Ian played professional rugby at the highest level for Leinster, Bordeaux Bègles, Bristol Bears and Ulster, earning 31 caps for Ireland in one of the most competitive eras the game has seen, where selection was never guaranteed and pressure was constant. Since retiring, he has transitioned to media and the business world, a very different kind of performance environment where credibility isn't given, it's earned all over again. He's had to shift his mindset massively, navigated a serious step change, and brings with him lots of lessons that apply far beyond sport. Ian, very welcome to Business Plus Talks, which we're delighted to be partnering on with Philip Lee, and I think you know Alan O'Connell there.
I do. Myself and Alan, we've been part of the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, so we've had some good times over in Florida State and
you like your American football too, don't you?
Love the college football in particular, and yeah, getting more into the American football.
Good stuff.
So yeah, now
very stop-starty though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's different, but there's parts of the stop-starty that rugby could certainly learn of. They're actually very efficient in how they make their decisions, and that's something I'd like to see coming into rugby, especially around those TMO decisions.
I hear you. So after 15 years, you're retired just over 2 years now. Young son, wife, 2 dogs. Life's pretty good?
Yeah, life's good, yeah. The nice start to the day every morning, bringing the dogs out to Shankill Beach.
2 labs, isn't it?
2 labs, yeah. So they need a good bit of running into them in the mornings.
Do you still want to go around Europe in a camper van with the dogs now? I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, just wake up every morning
onto
the next destination. Yeah, ideally along the coast.
Obviously, you've had a stellar career, right? So
Thank you.
To the outside world, Ian, it looks like you've had a fairly smooth transition. Is that the case into sort of corporate real world, let's call it that?
No, it comes with a lot of challenges, and I think one of the traps when you're playing professionally, you'll have everyone telling you, "Oh, this will transfer, that will transfer." What you don't have is many people coming to you and telling you the pitfalls of being a professional athlete for the guts of 15 years and then moving into a new career. And there's plenty of them. Like, for example, you're conditioned to very much work within the week that you're in as a professional athlete.
A lot of structure, right?
A lot of structure, and the coach won't want you worrying about the game that you're playing in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time. He'll want you to win the game that's right in front of you. And what that does over time is it conditions you to just think about the week that's in it. Now, the good part of being a professional athlete is you'll work hard in the day that's in front of you, but you won't necessarily be good at making a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan. When do you have to hire someone new? What are the projections? And that was something that I found really challenging moving into the kind of corporate world.
And status and familiarity there as well, though. You're sort of used to that. It's sort of like a bubble in a way, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you're also like you're used to the speed that professional sport works at. You know, if I saw something from training on a Tuesday and I messaged the defense coach at 10 o'clock at night, 10:02 a message is going to come back.
Really?
10:05 goes into the leadership group, and we say, right, we're going to bring this in tomorrow morning. Then it goes in front of 50 players the following morning, and it's implemented for the next training session. You compare that to the cadence of moving into the corporate world, and you send someone an email, you might get it back
for quite a while. Yeah,
it could be the 5th email and the 7th phone call by the time you get a response, because you're now the person who's looking for a meeting off them. You're trying to get into their calendar, and as opposed to in a team environment, you're working together and there's a strict deadline. The game is the deadline. That's the presentation day. So
you have a real focus, don't you?
Real laser focus, yeah.
I hear you like to sort of zone out for a while, for a good few hours before games, did you? Walk the pier,
that was
clear the head.
Exactly that. Yeah, I used to. I was very structured the day of a game, and I wanted to spend as little time around other people until I got into the change room. And
just with plays and calls and all that?
Yeah, I'd usually wake up, watch a movie in the morning that would be pretty relaxed. I'd have to be very planned out, same food every game day. And then when I'd try and set out certain times in the day where I'm going to go, right, this is when I'm going to be thinking about the game. Because if you don't do that, you can end up thinking about
regardless of which club you're playing for, any game day, the same rules apply, yeah?
Same rules apply, yeah. Okay. Spaghetti bolognese, pre-match meal.
A lot of carbs in there.
Exactly. But yeah, if you don't, what I found was if I didn't map out when I would be thinking about the game, I would be thinking about it all the time. And by the time, the game could be at 8, 9 o'clock, especially in France.
It's a long day then, isn't it?
Long day, and you can end up nearly fatigued. You've taught yourself into submission over it. Whereas I would say, right, I'm going to do it once in the morning, and then I'm going to do it twice in the afternoon, and then I'm going to sit down in the change room. That will be my last time, and once that book closes, it's going to be total commitment out on the field. Yeah.
So before the main transition, you've had a few, to be fair, right? Because you went from Leinster to Bordeaux to Bristol then to Ulster. Anyone stand out as particularly, because there's a few culture shocks there, right? Anyone stand out as particularly tough?
I think, from being in Leinster for 8 years, I probably thought that every other club would be very similar.
Yeah.
And having gone to Bordeaux and Bristol and Ulster, I've realised that every club is very different.
How's your French?
French is okay.
Good.
It was good when I was there. I was well able to do interviews in French and communicate with the French players, and you had to do that because if you didn't have French, the French guys.
But your players would be in French, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would, and they'd be selective enough of what they understood if you weren't speaking French. So, look, you're playing in their country. You have to be respectful of that, and that part of it actually wasn't the most challenging in the sense of speaking another language. It was adjusting to their training weeks, their style of training, how long you were on the field, what they were doing in the gym, the structures around it, whether it was physios, masseuses. What I realised quite quickly was Leinster was the best in class.
Really?
Yeah, they are. They're really well taught out. And
it's a real engine though, isn't it? Like it's a proper schooling for how to do stuff right. And if you think even about the academy players coming through, they're probably selected from such a young age now.
Yeah, it's peak performance in Leinster. Obviously it goes through the school and the club system, but they want to be the best. And if you said, look, I think we should bring in ice baths or cryo chambers or we need additional masseuses, you could go to Leo Cullen, you could go to Guy Easterby, and it would be provided for you very quickly. It was genuine peak performance, and the expectation was that they would provide that, and then you would have to live up to it, whether it was your gym sessions, your skin folds, etc.
So 15 years playing, right? Was there a moment, or were there many moments, Ian, where you were kind of going, maybe it's time now, or you felt time might be ticking away, where the game has changed for you, or you might be hanging up your boots at a certain point? Was there those little elements throughout your career, particularly maybe in the last 5 years, I don't know, or last couple of years, where you went, I don't know if it's for me anymore, or the competition is too much, or I'm just not feeling the game much, or as much as I used to? Yeah,
there was definitely times in my career, whether it was my own body slowing down or maybe the game,
because the body breaks down, doesn't it?
The body, it's tough on the body, for sure. But like, I think there was certain times in my career where I actually didn't adapt quickly enough to either law changes or styles of play changes. When Bristol went into the Premiership, the strengths of my game were always my running game and my passing game, but not necessarily my kind of controlled kicking game. And when we moved into the Premiership, especially with the pack of forwards we had, it was very important that we were keeping the ball in front of them. And I probably didn't adapt quickly enough to that. I was still trying to play my running and passing game, and learned that the hard way.
Well, I'm going to ask you, right, because the transition then from rugby then into the corporate world, okay?
Yeah.
What skills apply there, or what are transferable that you found? Because you've been in corporate for a good few years at this stage.
Yeah, like there's lots of stuff that's transferable. Like being transparent is one that's like, it seems so simple, but like if you've an issue with someone, have a conversation, and do it face to face. Don't do it over email or over Slack or over WhatsApp. Get to the bottom of the problem quickly. One thing that I would have liked to have thought that I did well as a player was figuring out what my fellow players made them tick. you know, and how you speak to Mike Ross versus how you spoke to Owen Redden versus how you spoke to Geordie Murphy. There were 3 different things. And if
the same rules for corporate. So if you go to a
Yeah.
designer, they don't need the hard like here, got to do this. You've got to approach them in a different way.
Exactly, yeah. And like in data ships, when we were working, you know, to get new features built, and how I spoke to the dev team would be very different to how I spoke to the sales team, because they're working at a different cadence as well. So figuring that out, figuring that part was transferable was a big help. And going, I don't need to change a whole lot here. I just need to figure this part out and kind of lean into the person more, was really important. I found, you know, you go from a very structured environment where your schedule is laid out from you, what clothes you have to wear, where you have to be at a certain time, your food is put in front of you, to then being on a kind of a
What was
more
it like sitting on a desk?
Well, it's challenging. It's different, like different speed, and that's where you know, I found that I needed to take ownership of my own schedule. So I needed to create my schedule and go, right, well, on a Monday morning, I need to be going to the gym. I need to have this window of time for my wife. I need to have this time to be able to go and socialize with my friends. But if I didn't have that structure laid out every Sunday evening, I felt like I was kind of chasing my tail.
So you plan for the week ahead, would you?
Plan for the week ahead.
That's a 9 to 5-ish, or you want to call it that? Like it's
and like it's not that I have to stick to it so strictly, but I find that structure helps, and then I'll review my week each time and go, well, do I want to do more of that, or do I want to do less of this? And I think it helps keep you kind of true to yourself and prevents you from being selfish as well. So.
And you're not in data ships anymore. I think you're starting a new job in the new year. How have the last couple of years working in that environment, how have they been for you? Like you've outside of the structure there, have you learned an awful lot about yourself in terms of how you can adapt to a new environment quite easily? Because we'll get on to your media and your punditry shortly as well, because that's pretty damn good. But what have you taken away from that yourself?
Yeah, like with data ships, it was a true startup.
You were head of sales or something, was it?
Yeah, I finished in the head of sales role. But before that, it was really figuring out how to sell what we created. So, you know, it started off very much around data privacy, and this is when the GDPR was coming out back in 2019. So it was all cookies, tools, privacy policies, dealing with data access requests.
Cookies really gone now, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, like, and we look, it sold fine, and we sold kind of on fear of, you know, if you don't do this, you don't implement that, there's a risk of getting fined. And there was a kind of hysteria around it, and that strategy worked really well. But 6 months, 12 months down the line, when the people you're selling to are looking left and right and these fines aren't coming, they're less concerned about implementing a data access request system. But the big change that the GDPR did have was around how data is collected. And we went from a kind of compliance product to a growth product, where in essence we were able to significantly increase the number of customers who were opting in or effectively opting in for email and SMS marketing. And then when, you know, we were getting asked about by our customers, you know, can we create a product like this? Once we created it, then we needed to figure out how we were going to sell it, how we were going to price it, and what I was doing a large part of was figuring out the different channels. So going to events, entertaining clients at dinners, building out the partnership channels. So for example, like Studio 49, who would do a lot of website builds or migrations, looking to partner with them so they would install data ships as standard for their clients.
I'm sorry, and when you were dealing with people, or if you're out, let's say, presenting the product, probably play the man at the ball. You trust your instincts in terms of the person you're dealing with here, a bit like what you were saying around the devs or the designers. There's a different approach to get people over the line, or a buy-in perspective, you know, in terms of what you're doing and where you're going with the business to obviously onboard them, right?
Yeah, like when I was dealing with potential clients, it would be really trying to figure out the pain point that they were having. And the nature of the product that we were selling, sometimes they didn't know that they had a problem already, that they were potentially missing out on huge amounts of valuable data. So there was an education piece, and that's where when we were selling, it wasn't a hard sell. We were trying to educate the customer. So even if they didn't go ahead with data ships, they still felt like they were getting something.
What data were you providing? What was the...
So in essence, it was additional email and SMS contacts so that they would be able to contact more of their paying customers. So So we would try and educate the customer as we went along, and then look at as you said, when you're trying to get in with an agency like Studio 49, you're trying to figure out, well, what are you looking for from the likes of data ships? What makes it work for you? Is it better offering for your customers? Is it revenue share? Is it ensuring that your current customer base are getting the best service possible?
Yeah, because it's funny, a lot of people might get so headstrong about the product and how amazing it is, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. You're trying to solve a problem for the customer, the client going, and ours is top of the pops for that. Like, we're the best in the business. But you're isolating the pain point to then offer up. It's not like, listen to me and what I've got here and how great the business is, but it's more like that parallel shift, what we can do to help you.
Yeah, like if I'm talking to a potential client and I'm telling them about all these amazing features of the product, they're not going to care for large parts of them. Yeah, they're gonna. But what if I can take you along this journey? Like, if I can ask you, how does email marketing work for you? Does it work well? And you tell me, it generates 20% of our revenue. And I say, well, how is first purchase profitability for you? Oh, it's actually not good. It's trending down. And how are the cost of your ads? Oh, they're actually going up. And then
you've transferred very well, Ian, over to the corporate world here.
I figured out how to sell that product. All right.
Good work.
So yeah, but you get what I'm saying. It's conversational.
Yeah.
When are you asking the question? And it's bringing them on a journey that they don't feel like they're being sold to.
Definitely.
And if they can make that realization themselves, this is going to really help me, then you're in a good spot to then start placing what you're going to be doing to solve that pain point they have.
How much are people a key factor of business, though, all things considered? Because I think you also invest in a couple, and I'd imagine, knowing the little I know you, but I feel like I know you a while now, is you will probably back the people more so than the product itself, because the people are the one that push it and really drive it forward, don't they?
Yeah, totally. And we used a system called Gong, which would record and you'd be able to review all calls. And the way I viewed that was the same way that I would have viewed doing video analysis. So you would have said, look, you've jumped the gun there, you've left too early, or look, in that instance, get your hands up, make sure you're animating. Or if you held a bit more width here, we would have created a bit more space. It was the exact same when I was doing the review of Gong calls. You'd be saying, see, in that instance there, just pause, let the person finish what they're saying. Or when you've said the price, don't follow in straight away with a discount. Just sit back and get a reaction. And then it was also like figuring out, why was a deal falling down at the later stages? Were we asking the right questions earlier in the sales process? And I wouldn't have been that way starting off, but I would have figured out and learned the hard way that if you don't follow a kind of set process, you've no kind of foundation to consistently improve or to have a repeatable process. And that's very similar to a game plan in rugby. You can't just keep changing what you're doing week in, week out. You need to have your kind of foundations in place.
And now you've jumped into the pressure cooker of live punditry and media analysis, where you got to watch, I suppose, and from my own perspective, we were chatting off air a little bit there around just the honesty, but You've got to work for the audience. You've got to understand that they're tuning into you for a particular output, right? But there's also the fine line of not putting a player down for the sake of putting a player down. It's a short-term win, right? You've got to look at the game as a whole. You've played the game. It's a lived experience. You can see it from many different angles. But you need to bring people in to let them understand the game too, almost like you see it. How hard is that to do, though?
Yeah, I think on the criticism piece, there's certain language that you can use. So first off, if you're going to be questioning someone's effort or professionalism, like I knew as a player that was a no-no.
Yeah.
Because it's very rare that a player wouldn't be trying, or a coach wouldn't be trying.
You won't talk to that person again, probably.
No, and that's going to really hurt, because you're really questioning their kind of core values. Everyone's going to have off days, but it would very rarely come down to effort or want, and you don't know what that person's going through, whether it's an injury or an illness, or just a poor performance. But
and actually, that reminds me, in 2015 quarters World Cup against Argentina, you showed a lot of the responsibility for that loss unnecessarily, but that's accountability and ownership, whereby you were almost manning up for the sake of the wider team, right? That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, but like I think it comes back to, could you have been better yourself? And if the answer is yes, well then don't look for the excuses elsewhere. And look, it was a tough day at the office for a lot of us.
Yeah, it was not the game. It was a great game. It was just unfortunate.
Yeah, and on reflection, I was kind of proud of our efforts to get ourselves back into it after such a challenging start, and we did have opportunities to potentially nudge ahead. And had we done that, maybe we stay ahead and we get through. But full credit to the Argentinians. They came out and just really kind of shocked us initially. And yeah, look, it was a lot of stuff didn't go our way, but with injuries and with suspensions and whatnot. So, but yeah, like I think when you're doing the punditry, you touched on it there. If you're doing a podcast, it's going to be a different style to doing punditry on the TV, and then very different again when you're doing commentary, when you're calling it live. But at the end of the day, you're still providing entertainment.
Yeah.
People, you've been, and it really is a privilege to be put in that position when it's like a 2-hour window in someone's week that they can kind of switch off from the challenges of life, and
you're in a business environment, but if you're also in the game. That's obviously on purpose, or have stayed in the game from that respect.
Yeah, and like I love it. Like,
do you miss the game?
Yeah, I miss it, but this helps me feel connected to it.
Okay.
And you're still catching up with coaches and players in and around.
I'd say a lot of your
games.
WhatsApp groups have gone like crickets now. It's just like, man, there's nothing happening there.
yeah, a lot quieter. All right. But yeah, like there's also an element, like I'm a big Leinster supporter, Ulster supporter, and when stuff isn't going well, that's sometimes when you can go, well, I can get my teeth into this here, and I can help protect certain players or protect the coaches or protect the club and look at it through a different lens. And then my favourite thing to do is to give people a better understanding of the game. So when, like, rugby is complicated and unnecessarily complicated at times.
There's a lot of facets to it.
Yeah, but if I can explain it in a certain way, like, for example, why is a team kicking? They're kicking to try and win the ball back to then attack against an unstructured defence, as opposed to before me saying that, you could be watching going, oh, he's kicking again. But the next time you watch it through a different lens, you're saying, oh, well, this is actually a lovely opportunity that we've got now. I'm kind of understanding it a little bit better.
It's the same for the corporate world, though, as well, isn't it? If you just lay out a clear pathway to success, potentially. And I was going to ask you around leadership, because the same rules apply, and I know you've played with many good leaders, but there's also many leaders within a team too. What constitutes a good leadership or leader for you, or someone who you would follow, and how, because the same rules as keep saying, they do apply from a corporate perspective, don't they?
No, they do. And look, there's lots of different styles of leadership, and in sport you can be not necessarily the person who's shouting the house down before going out to play a game in the change room, but you can lead by your efforts. A big tackle, a big carry, doing the right thing at the right time. You can also be the leader who knows that momentum is gone. You pull the team back in, and you've the knack to say the right thing to get people back on point. It's very similar in business, and the way I viewed leadership was I didn't want it just to be from the top down. I wanted to be, if you're the BDO who's 20 years of age, you should still be a leader, and you can have traits that you're known for, and that can be first in, last out. It could be the person who brings the coffees in. It could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be big stuff that turns the dial. But for me, leadership always comes back to consistency.
Yeah.
Because if you're absolutely amazing one day, and then the following day you're falling way below that bar, and then you're amazing the next day, and then you're falling below, people don't know what they're coming into. And like, ultimately what people want is consistency, especially if you're going into a 9-to-5 job. You want to be able to go, well, I know what Dave's going to be like today. I know his bad day is only dropping down a point or two, and his good day is going up a point or two, but not these crazy fluctuations. Because then if I'm heading into a meeting with you and we are seeing those fluctuations, my anxiety is going to be through the roof. And then you're on a good day and you're just kind of come out, you're relieved, and then you're on a bad day going, oh geez, here we go again. So consistency has to be integral to leadership, and that can be, if you're consistently tough on your employees, at least they know what's coming.
Yeah.
As opposed to being, the guy who's laughing and joking with you on a Monday and a Tuesday, and then he comes in and the hammer comes down on a Wednesday. That's not good for anyone.
Do you think you have to find a fire in what you do regardless of what you're doing? whether that's rugby, work, like map something out that you're focusing on to get through that given week, day, month, that you're achieving.
Yeah, you've got to have the ability to switch off.
Yeah.
If you can't just be on the hamster wheel the whole time, because if you burn yourself out, you're good to no one. And for me, it's really important that I get time with my friends and family, and genuine time where you're not necessarily thinking about work or listening to a podcast or just enjoying the moment.
Any good podcasts?
Indo Sport. No, left wing, Licky Fitz. No, I listen to a lot of the rugby podcasts in the UK. The Love of Rugby, very good. Ben Youngs, Dan Coles, Andy Good's one with Jim Hamilton, the Rugby Show. And
question for you: how conscious were you of not relying on your past for like authority in the keep going in the real world though? Okay, like was it a conscious effort to go, okay, that's done now, I'm on to this new career, let's go?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. I think the first part is it's a privilege and a luxury to be able to get that initial door opened. People go, yeah, look, I'll see what Ian Madigan's selling, or maybe he's done his research and he thinks
you have a name behind you, and then
thinks it's a good fit.
Yeah.
So the door is now open. You're in, and a lot of it will be like, I want to just see how he sells. I want to see what he's like in this corporate environment, especially if it's people who've been doing it for 15, 20 years. They want to see, well,
were you nervous
what's
at the
he
start?
made of? Yeah, I was, but it was also like it was having the understanding and the awareness to go, I'm lucky that these doors are getting opened. You best make the most of these opportunities, and that's where you had to be really planned out. But also as well, what I found was I don't know everything. I'm going into a new role with Salesforce. I'm not going to have all the answers, and it's okay to say that. What it's not okay to do is to bluff and blag. It's fine to say, I actually don't know the answer to that, Dave. I'm going to come back to you on tomorrow.
It's powerful, isn't it, though?
Yeah, it is. And that's where, if you say you don't have the answer, well, the other answers that you've given then have a bit more of a punch, because they'll say, oh, well, he knows his stuff about this, that, and the other, but maybe that's not his area of expertise, and he'll insert the right person to do that part of the deal.
Yeah. So you pumped for next year then?
Yeah, I am.
How are you breaking down? So if you're going to Salesforce, another plug for them, what are you also? So you're going to keep up the punditry and the analysis as well? So
yeah,
what does a work a week look like now, Ian?
Well, it was important that even when I was going through the interview process, that you're transparent about what you're doing outside of it, and that ideally that you found a company that saw value in the PR side of it.
So to be flexible enough, would
So yeah, like I do the weekly podcast with Joe Malloy and on the Indo Sport, and then I typically would work 3 of the 4 weekends in a month with Premier, either covering the URC or the Champions Cup. And I'm lucky that a lot of that work is in Dublin. Yeah, it doesn't require too much travel.
Not with a young kid, you don't want that. At that
no,
stage.
And I think it doesn't feel like work. Like I really enjoy it when you're watching the games. You're in studio with the likes of Zebo and stuff like that, and you're laughing and joking. It doesn't feel like work.
Birch in there as well, is
Birch is in there as well. Yeah, the best in the business.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, no question. Well, look, before we wrap things up, you've mentioned a podcast. I would like to ask about one leadership trait that wins a dressing room or a crowd, sort of gladiator style, right? What is that one trait, or can you pinpoint one trait that you would look to in a leader?
I think it's situational. You've got to have a read of what's the right thing to do now, what's the right thing to say now. And
it's also what you said as well, Ian, not pretending you know everything, owning up. The accountability piece is huge. Saying, what you feel, being vulnerable.
Yeah, totally. And that's where, there can be a time, after, for example, a disappointing loss, not saying a whole lot is perfectly okay. Monday, Tuesday of a week, you're just looking to set the tone. If you feel like players aren't on it, and you've done your analysis, you've seen mistakes. They're not just errors. They're from lack of preparation. That's when you come in on a Thursday morning and that can have impact, and it's backed up by facts and stats. That's really important. it's measured. And the best leaders I had, I was lucky enough to experience, had that nous where they were able to, in a kind of structured, measured way, dial up the emotion, but also, have the awareness of maybe now's not the right time to go in hard on the guys.
And actually, as a switch, Ian, has it taught you much about yourself or life actually after sport? Like, has it given you a brand new perspective on things?
I think the great thing with playing sport is, you're reliant on other people around you, and they're reliant on you, and that's where the consistency piece was something that you probably didn't have as a younger player, but you realize, look, as the out half in this team, a lot of people are looking at you, and a lot of people are dependent on you. Yeah. So,
actually, man, that's as far as position goes, like, all eyes on you, right? Because you're conducting the orchestra there.
Yeah, you aren't. Like, if you're a young guy who's like, you take someone like Prendergast or Crowley now, like they're in the middleman of a big organisation. Let's say, you're 23, 22, 23. You're effectively dealing with a lot of layers of management. You're, the key guy in a team of 50 players calling the shots. You're then, dealing with your defence coach, your attack coach, your kicking coach, the director of rugby. You've all your supporters there as well. Yeah. Then you've an additional setup with Ireland. As a 22-year-old, that is significant. Like, you're like a director in a 10, 20, 50 million business.
Yeah.
At 22, 23, it's a big responsibility. And then you compare that to what's surrounding them. Their friends are in college.
Yeah.
They're turning up for 2 or 3 lectures a day. They're enjoying all the good things that come with college. Yet you've got to be laser focused because people are depending on you. There's people who've got to pay their mortgages, pay their childcare bills. Just because you've had a bad day or a bad week, that can really affect them. So that's a huge responsibility to be on their shoulders. And full credit to the two guys who are in that role at the moment. I think they're carrying themselves incredibly well.
Yeah. So before we do actually wrap up, we have a question from our last guest. Okay. And I think it's a good one. It's a decent one, actually. Coming your way. So, Ian, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and were honest with yourself about your mental health?
Great question.
So it's gone. So most of the previous guests would probably have taken either a health or a mental health route, which I love. It's not. It's back to, if you're healthy and happy, you could do better work.
Yeah,
you can be a better person, family man, father, all that stuff. And this ties into it beautifully, actually.
Yeah, it does. And I was lucky for a large part of my career in Leinster. Enda McNulty was the sports psychologist, and sports psychology was wasn't quite on trend. It was beginning to be talked about more, and I committed to that, and it was amazing for me. I saw him nearly every 2 weeks for the period of probably 5 or 6 years.
Really? Okay.
And that is not far off just like getting counselling. You're going in and you're saying,
totally.
Yeah, look, this is when I'm getting nervous. These are the dark thoughts that I'm having. I'm worried about this. I feel like I'm getting shafted here.
So you'd have looked at yourself in the mirror a fair few times then?
Yeah, that part of it I would have. But at the same time, like I'd look at myself in the mirror at times now and go, yeah, I feel the pressure of having to perform, whether it's on the punditry or even if you're going out with friends. You've kind of set a certain bar where you're providing a level of entertainment that people expect.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to sit back and not have to do that. And then you're asking yourself the question, well, why? And that's where it comes back to like this weekly kind of preview of my week and scheduling. Like, it's really important that you have that window to check in and go, well, am I stretching myself too thin here? Am I having enough quality time with Sonny, with Anna, with my family? And am I being present, or am I always just like chasing my tail?
So you're doing it weekly?
Trying to do it weekly, yeah. But that's always a work on, And like life's tough. Like life it's high pressure. Like, it's expensive world that we're living in. I feel it, just as much as everyone else.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's tough, and I think you've got to be able to have certain people that you can lean on. and say, oh, how are you getting on? You know, and it can't always be just this positive ride.
I think there's always an inner circle with people that you have on, or can count on, should I say, one hand, that they're their go-to. You know, listen, not feeling great here, or just need a dig out.
Yeah, and just like sharing the problem, because quite often you'll find that people are going through very similar stuff, and just by talking about it, you'll then kind of feel a bit better that maybe there's a way out.
I think us men are getting a little bit better, in general, which is great to see, and long may it last. So, would you like to leave a question for the next guest then?
Question for the next guest. Who's the next guest?
That's an open-ended one. I was asked that one as well before.
Yeah.
I could tell you, but I won't.
Question for the next guest. If you could rewind 10 years, what would you change?
Wowzers. Okay. Well, Ian, huge thanks for all the insights and actually your honesty through all the ups and downs, which we all go through. Just touch on that there, and I think you've handled them tremendously. Life isn't about, I think, what you do at your peak. It's about how you kind of adapt with the new environment that you've gone into the last couple of years. And I think the jersey may be off, the scoreboard might be gone, but I think the best is yet to come. So well played, and thanks again.
Thanks a million, Dave. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
A quick word about our sponsors, Philip Lee LLP. Philip Lee has evolved from a specialist regulatory practice to become a leading commercial law firm. Their partners are sector specialists, leading talented teams of lawyers in a collaborative, nurturing environment. Philip Lee's solutions help clients build better businesses, a better society, and a better planet. Find out more at philiplee.ie. Philip Lee, leading the way in commercial law.